you come from a family that people have described it as a Illuminati family. Is that how you would describe it?
I come from a family that they believe they are descendants of the old gods. They believe that they are carriers of a seed line that gives them the divine right to rule. And that is what gives them justification spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, scientifically to dominate the lesser species known as humans. Humans literally means a lesser species of man. And they do not believe they are a human in the same way. They believe they are something other than. And that's descendants of this hierarchical ruling species that is from the celestial realm that descended in the days of Jared and came down and procreated with the daughters of men, and that they still trace their seed line back to Gilgamesh, till Nimrod. And so this is what the dynastic families believe they have, is a superiority in their genetics on one side and the ability to commune with the divine. And so their children are progenitors of these, some might call them abreactions, mutations, these skills, psychic abilities, that kind of stuff, all variants of it. And so they raise up their children in this path with which involves a tremendous amount of shattering of the soul and the identity, so that there's compartmentalization within, and it allows them the ability to train their child up in a way that makes them conducive towards the family. I call them the family. That's what I called them. You know, it's a better word for mafia than anything else. But no, we didn't call ourselves, like my family wouldn't ever call themselves Illuminists. They're Luciferian, that's for certain. They worship Hallel and Shahar, as he's really known, but different reasons than what people are ascribed to, you know. So on one side of it, I've seen physical beings that are definitely not like our animals up here come out of these spaces from inside the earth. I've seen in deep underground military bases, dogmen, like you would kind of describe them, some more humanized. And I think a lot of those were experimentation and genetic splicing. I think a lot of that was gene editing stuff that I've seen. But I do believe that some of these things are holdovers from the old days. They're the last of their kinds, and they've been breeding them, right? And I believe that that's the stuff that's prophesied that's going to come back out and cause the hearts of men to stop for fear of looking after these things that are coming up on the earth. You know, that's why everywhere I went throughout my youth, I could go to these tunnels and these caves and call out, and I could hear them, and they would call back, you know, and it's like, it's a seductive power that draws you back into it.
You could call out to them? Like, yeah. Was it like a language or a sound or what?
Oh yeah, man. You can learn to call to them. You can go out here in these hills out here and do it. You can still do it tonight. On these full moons and stuff, you can start calling out. You'll think you'll hear coyotes at first, and then all of a sudden it's a totally different, you know, it's a different sound that starts to resonate. And then it's a different one that calls off from over here, right? You got to understand, some of these guys that you think are just neighbors and stuff, or just people, like, this is what they keep in their barn, you know?
Are they
this is the stuff they keep. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I go out hunting for these things.
You want to kill somebody and you're in the family, right? You mark the target, you mark them. You know, you might cut their ring finger off and put it in their mouth and shove a dagger through it and leave it in their jaw, okay? And you leave that at the scene. That is what's called a message to the masses, that this hit has been authorized by somebody far above your pay grade, and you leave it the heck alone. It happens all the time. There's a lot of murders that happen in this country, all over the world, that will never be on the news. Families. Like, I'm talking to a guy who's a migrant worker, and his family is in the cartel and is a sicario. If you don't know what a sicario is, it's an assassin. Hashashin is where these words come from. And he goes in, he's living in a normal town here in the Appalachians, and his next door neighbor, all of them are murdered. All of them. Father, wife, children, everyone butchered on the table in pieces. That's a message to the masses. That's not on the news. I looked it up. It's not on the news. It's there if you dig. But that's a huge, massive, could be the most unbelievable news story for a lot of these news junkies. It's never going to be there because it's a cartel hit. You got to understand who these cartels are. They're families. Different families, and they are fighting a war, a quiet war. And this is why you have gray men that are out there to do their dirty business, gray women too. But there's stuff that's non-prosecutable in the United States. And a lot of it happens if you have diplomatic immunity. And that's what a lot of these people operate under, the same guidelines of that. I don't have that. I don't have any of those protective measures in place whatsoever, but it was as familiar as breathing to me to go through that world, and that was normal, that murders happen all the time and nobody ever cared. Nobody ever cared, right? But also the vast majority of what you do and you're trained in is to kill people covertly, which means you make it look like something other than an incidental death or an accidental death, as opposed to that's a homicidal death. So a lot of it is learning how to put things in people's body that cause them to die. Maybe not right away, maybe later. And so this is the arts of poisons. And that's why people will turn to the Jesuits to learn that tradecraft, because they're some of the best at it, right? That's what so much of it is, learning how to destroy people's vehicles so they don't work properly, or they suddenly just gas on the way all the way. There's lots of it involves throwing people off of cliffs and buildings and stuff like that, so that it's the banker suicide, whatever it may be. That's why the vast majority of this stuff is non-prosecutable, because all of it, if you look into it, or if they start finding where these bodies are, they're going to look like accidental deaths.
You mentioned something several times on this recording that I need to bring up. How do you, I don't know if get around is the right word, but how do you feel what's going on when it comes to you openly, publicly acknowledging the fact that you've killed people?